We all know that we need to take control of our digital life to achieve our goals and live the life we want to live. Sometimes, no matter how hard we try, it seems that the strategies that worked in the past are no longer effective. And recently I fell back into my old habits. I was mindlessly scrolling and consuming content, going on YouTube like I was eating the chips at Five Guys, and I couldn't stop. And that's where this Harvard study on conquering digital addiction comes in. You see, it completely changed my view on how to treat digital addictions. In the past, I've been very harsh on myself and very strict in terms of trying to break away from these addictions, and that strategy hasn't always worked. So this Harvard study revealed to me that overcoming digital addictions is not a one-size-fits-all type of deal, and also that different methods are effective for different people, and that what works for you can change through time. So I wanted to talk about the 2 recommended strategies on how to overcome digital addictions and how they've changed my perspective entirely. The first strategy argues that we should systematically turn away from the information stream and focus on more energy-enhancing activities. This is what I've focused on in the past. And the second strategy argues that the best way to fight digital distraction is by using digital tools in a very targeted way. Hola amigos, I'm Diego, a software engineer working in London, and if you're interested in beating your digital addictions and reclaiming your time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the team. Let's get into it. So the first strategy that argues for us to turn away from the information stream to deal with digital addictions investigates the problem of digital addictions very deeply and goes into 4 different academic studies to highlight the overall issue. So I do want to touch upon these 4 studies to truly understand the problem behind digital addictions. So the first study deals with multitasking, and we've spoken many times on the channel about how the diffraction of our attention can lead to really bad long-term results. So the study delved into the relationship of humans and technology throughout time. So the study gave 3 age groups, baby boomers, Generation X, and the Net generation, born in the 1980s, a list of 66 pairs of activities to find out which activities they did in tandem. And some of the questions included, for example, do you go online and text simultaneously? And do you email and eat at the same time? And they asked these questions in 2008 and also in 2014. And the increase for each age group is quite significant. I'm gonna leave the exact increases here on the screen, but you can see that every single age group is increasing their multitasking and becoming more dependent on these digital technologies throughout areas of their life. Now, the second study discussed the impact of mobile phones on personal connections. Andrew Przybylski, a psychologist from the University of Sussex, conducted a study to find exactly that. So he ran a very simple experiment where strangers were told to talk for 10 minutes, and he divided the study participants in 2 groups. The first group contained 74 undergraduates that were paired up and asked to talk about an interesting event in the last month, and some of them happened to have this conversation with a mobile phone present. The mobile phone was just sitting on the table, and for others this mobile phone was replaced with a black note. And for the second group, some of the students were told to have a casual conversation about how they felt about Christmas trees, not a particularly deep topic, and others in the group were asked to discuss the most meaningful event they'd experienced that year. And again, some participants had a phone present on the table whilst having this conversation, and others did not. And the researchers found out that even though the phone never rang or vibrated, it affected conversation. Andrew Przybylski, the psychologist, stated that when people were having an important conversation, relationship quality was lower, partner trust was lower, and empathy was lower when the phone was present. And I thought this was crazy because most of the students didn't even realize the phone was there, and still the negative effects of the presence of the mobile phone affected the conversation, the quality of the personal connection. The third study dealt with the cost of switching. Gloria Mark of the University of California at Irvine has shown that workers typically attend to a task for only 3 minutes before switching to something else, usually an email or digital communication. And as we've mentioned in the channel before, it takes up to 23 minutes to refocus after being completely taken out of the task. And the fourth study dealt with digital anxiety. This is a topic that I wasn't very familiar with, but the study really impacted the way in which I view digital addictions and how different they are from more traditional forms of addiction. So the researchers in this study kind of flipped things around. They claimed that even though people describe the overuse of digital devices as an addiction, given that most people don't derive any pleasure from the use of these digital devices in such an obsessive way, that it shouldn't exactly be classified as an addiction. And they even went into several specific psychological classifications that dealt with these digital addictions. So the fear of missing out, for example, is an actual psychological classification of this pervasive digital-related anxiety. This is something I knew about. But then there's also phobo, which is the fear of being offline, and nomophobia, the fear of being out of mobile phone contact. And many of these forms of behavior are very obsessive and border on the obsessive compulsive, as the researchers found out. And this is especially noteworthy for heavy mobile phone users, where when you take their mobile phone away, they experience a spike in anxiety, and that anxiety only continues to rise the more they are away from their phones. So this is a very serious issue that affects people's psychology in very different ways and very dangerous ways. So to conclude, these 4 studies really changed my perspective on digital addictions in general and made me realize how much of a problem it is, especially as it manifests as obsessive compulsive disorder in many people, how difficult of an issue this actually is to tackle. And in my own personal experience, I used to force myself to quit these things cold turkey and was really strict and very harsh with myself when I didn't live up to my expectation. And now I do recognize that some grace, some patience, and understanding the deep psychological impact of these little things, I think is incredibly important in terms of creating strategies, sustainable strategies for us to be able to detach from these digital addictions. Now let's talk about the solutions that the first strategy recommends. So the first solution is digital tapering. And this essentially means that we should use behavioral principles to wean ourselves from our digital addictions. And this solution is especially effective for people who are heavy mobile phone users. So here's how you implement it. Allow yourself to check all forms of digital communication, but then shut everything down and silence your phone completely. Now set an alarm for 15 minutes, and whenever that rings, give yourself 1 minute to do a little digital check-in. And repeat this process until you are comfortable increasing your off-grid time to an hour or several hours. The second solution involves working with your ultradian rhythm. And this strategy is inspired by the work of Nathaniel Kleitman, who established that our brains work in 90-minute rest activity cycles throughout the day. So whenever you're working with technology or using your phone on your own personal time, make sure that you take a recharging break away from technology every 90 minutes at bare minimum. This is especially important if you're multitasking with technology, which makes the brain overly active and screws up your ultradian rhythm. Even just a 10-minute walk is recommended to be able to work with your ultradian rhythm and not have these digital addictions sap your energy and just take over your life. And the third solution, one which I implemented recently, is technology-free zones within your house. So what I've been recently doing is keeping this fellow outside of my bedroom at all times. So my phone can never enter my bedroom. This is incredibly helpful because not only am I able to create that mental separation within my bedroom and other areas of my house, in the sense that my bedroom is only for sleeping, but also that the effects of looking at these screens and the blue light and everything that is associated with it doesn't completely damage my sleep cycle. This has been great, and I recently bought an alarm clock that has a very nice and soothing wake up, and so it's a lot nicer than using this as an alarm. So I just leave this during the night, charging outside of my bedroom, and it's worked wonders. Wonderful solution. Now let's hop to the second strategy that argues that the best way to fight digital distractions is actually by the targeted use of digital tools. So the second strategy didn't delve into studies so much, but was a little bit more practical and bigger picture in terms of its analysis. So it argued that we should fight fire with fire, so fight the technology addiction with better technology. And the author claimed that this concept of turning off is simply not tenable for a lot of us in this modern day, because so much work, communication, and socializing is done online that many of us can't simply afford to be offline for any significant period of time throughout the week, including weekdays and weekends, and that our goal should be to make online communications as focused and productive as possible. There's a lot of software out there to help us do just that. The first solution recommended by the author was to abandon the always-on mentality. It is impossible to be on top of your work, the news, social media, LinkedIn posts, your family time, your hobbies, exercise, and every other thing under the sun, right? It's impossible to have this always-on and always connected mentality. So the first thing, kind of psychology-wise, is just to abandon that mentality and recognize that our time is incredibly limited and we have to choose very, very specifically how we use it. The second solution is all about controlling the email beast. So email can be one of the biggest distractions that we face in our day-to-day. The study by McKinsey actually found that knowledge workers spend up to 28% of their day on email. So email is definitely one of the biggest productivity assassins, and it's just that digital distraction that is always there, and it's just it sucks you in. So the author recommends to set rules and filters to manage your email inbox so that only the most essential messages actually reach you, and those that are non-essential go to other folders for you to be able to review later. So things like newsletters, purchase receipts, social media alerts, maybe company-wide communications, all of these should be sent directly to another folder where you can review them later. So set some time at the end of the week to review that non-essential folder and deal with the things that are inside. On my end, I would also recommend Tiago Forte's article on Inbox Zero, which is the philosophy I followed for my own email inbox for almost 3 years now, and it's worked absolute wonders. It's going to be linked down below, so you see the exact steps that you need to take to be able to sustainably achieve Inbox Zero. The third solution is to prioritize your news and media consumption. So stop browsing the internet mindlessly and ensure that you create a system where the most important information reaches you. And I really love this line in the Harvard study that says, remember that you can't and don't need to read everything. You're looking for significant stories and insights in your feed, plus a little extra content that gives you something new to think about and something unique to share. Just a beautiful way to remind us that we just can't consume everything and can't be on top of everything. And the solution recommends to use a newsreader app such as Feedly or Flipboard, and also read it later app like Reader, which I use myself. These apps allow you to subscribe to different RSS feeds, different blogs, even search the web by keyword or hashtag, allow that most important critical information to reach you directly instead of going on the BBC website and scrolling through hundreds of technology articles to see if you can find some interesting information. This really saves time, and it's a strategy that I've used for a very long time, because myself, I don't read the news at all, but there's different people online that I do follow in terms of authors, blogs, technology think pieces, things like that, and I like that information to come directly to me, so I don't have to get into their blog and look at all of the other just unnecessary information that perhaps I'm not interested in, or go to these bigger websites that just contain so much information that is just, to me, it's overwhelming. I really don't like to subject my brain and my mind to that torture. The fourth solution that the study recommends is to automate your digital output. Even if you don't work in social media management, or even if you don't have a very active social media output for your own personal business or something like that, it's still important to be active on platforms like LinkedIn and share important things within your field, connect with important people within your field, create those connections, and build and improve your career in that way. And these things can take a lot of time and be huge digital distractions. So there's many social media automation tools like Hootsuite, Buffer, or Social Inbox that allow you to schedule posts in advance and perhaps update your LinkedIn feed with interesting information, things like that. And once you subscribe to one of these tools and create a system that allows you to automate, you can spend perhaps an hour every week just adding some information and scheduling some posts in advance and create an entire week's worth of content and connections and reaching out messages and all of these things on LinkedIn to boost your career and allow you to just be detached from that whole daily LinkedIn grind and connections and all of these things that truly is a huge distraction, and it becomes being like an Instagram for professionals essentially. So that's it for the second strategy. I'm going to leave a quick cheat sheet that discusses both strategies, both their problem analysis and their solutions, linked down below in the description, so you can have it and check it whenever you want to remind yourself of all of these different strategies. So we talked about some very important principles in terms of conquering digital addictions and the bigger picture of this world of digital distractions. But if you want a deeper step-by-step guide on how to detach from this fella, here's a video on how to create your very own distraction-free iPhone. And even if you don't have an iPhone, the principles there definitely apply to Android. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one, amigos.